From our Toronto studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Aylia Batool. Newly leaked emails suggest that convicted child sexual abuser Jeffrey Epstein played a far bigger role in Leslie Wexner's Anti-Palestine philanthropic network. This and more on today's show, so stay tuned. Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis says he is welcoming the Council on American Islamic Relations, or CAIR's lawsuit after he declared the group a foreign terrorist organization. CAIR is not on the federal government's list of terrorist organizations. DeSantis recently signed an executive order linking the country's largest Muslim civil rights organization to the Muslim Brotherhood. He says CAIR's lawsuit will allow the state to seek the group's financial records, and the Attorney General is prepared to fight the case. Pew Research once described the Muslim Brotherhood as the most influential modern Islamist movement. It is also the only major political force in the Middle East that has pushed for democracy against authoritarian rule. It won Egypt's 2012 election before being overthrown by the army a year later. CAIR Florida says the order targets Muslims for political reasons and violates basic rights. Newly leaked emails suggest that convicted child sexual abuser Jeffrey Epstein played a far bigger role in Leslie Wexner's Anti-Palestine philanthropic network than the Wexner Foundation has admitted. The foundation is an American philanthropic organization headquartered in Ohio, which develops Jewish professional and volunteer leaders in North America and public leaders in Israel. The foundation has claimed that Epstein never handled its funds and had no influence after leaving in 2007. However, hundreds of emails from Epstein's Yahoo inbox, dated 2005 to 2008, show that he acted as the de facto financial boss inside the Wexner's family office in Ohio. Staff repeatedly saw his approval for major decisions, including in-tax matters and 8-figure transfers. Messages also show Epstein at the center of sensitive grants and foundation finances. His lawyer, Darren Indyke, relied on instructions and shielded communications under attorney-client privilege. The emails were vetted and released by the whistleblower group Distributed Denial of Secrets. They contradict the Foundation's 2020 review, which said no such records existed. Officials declined to comment on the leaked material. President Donald Trump is threatening new tariffs on Indian rice, saying India should not be dumping rice in the American market. Speaking at a White House roundtable, Trump told his team that tariffs could be used to fix what he calls unfair trade. The United States already charges a 50% tariff on several Indian goods. Trump now wants to know why Indian rice is not treated the same way. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said trade talks are still underway. Trade experts say this is election season messaging aimed at U.S. farmers. India exported about $392 million of rice to the U.S. last year. The Indian Rice Exporters Federation says demand in the U.S. remains strong and earns substantial foreign exchange for the country. 12 former FBI agents who were fired for kneeling during a 2020 racial justice protest in Washington are now suing to get their jobs back. They say they knelt only to calm a tense crowd after the killing of George Floyd, a black man murdered by white police officer Derek Chauvin in May 2020. The agents argued that it was a tactical move, not a political message. The lawsuit says the agents were outnumbered and had no riot gear or proper training. Their lawyers say the kneeling prevented violence and saved American lives. Internal reviews in 2020 found no political motive. But in 2025, FBI Director Kash Patel dismissed them for what he called unprofessional conduct. The agents allege they were targeted because they were seen as sympathetic to President Donald Trump's opponents. They want reinstatement, back pay, damages, and their records cleared. The FBI has declined to comment. More than 3/4 of homes in the United States are now unaffordable for a typical family. A new bank rate analysis says the median household earns approximately $84,000 yearly, while families need roughly $113,000 to buy a typical home. That is priced at $435,000. Analysts say housing costs shouldn't exceed 30% of income. They warn only a small slice of the market meets that standard. Experts say home ownership, once a middle-class path to building wealth, is slipping out of reach. First-time buyers made up just 24% of purchases last year, far below the 50% recorded in 2010. The country also faces a shortage of nearly 5 million homes. In cities such as New York and San Francisco, buyers often need more than $200,000 a year to afford a median-priced home. Some southern states and western states show better prospects as looser rules encourage new construction. Rights groups in the United States are urging Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, to close the Fort Bliss immigration detention site in Texas. They say conditions at the Camp East Montana tent facility are dangerous, abusive, and unfit for holding thousands of people. In a detailed letter to ICE, the groups claim the inmates are subjected to beatings, sexual abuse, medical neglect, hunger, and foul-tasting water. They claim ICE is pressuring detainees to accept deportation to countries with which they have no connection. Lawyers interviewed more than 45 detainees and gathered 16 sworn declarations outlining a pattern of excessive force and coercion. One teenager, identified as Samuel, said officers beat him so badly that he lost consciousness, broke a tooth, and suffered severe damage to his ear. Another detainee, Ignacio, said guards slammed his head against a wall and threatened to send him to Mexico, El Salvador, or Africa. The facility, opened in 2025 on a former World War II internment site, now holds more than 2,700 people. A leaked inspection found more than 60 violations in its first 50 days. Rights groups say Fort Bliss has become a humanitarian crisis and must be shut down immediately. Hundreds of displaced Palestinians are struggling to survive inside the Bilal bin Rabah Mosque in Khan Yunis. Details coming up next. Hundreds of displaced Palestinians are struggling to survive inside the Bilal bin Rabah Mosque in Khan Yunis due to Israel's ongoing genocide in Gaza. Israel's violence has not abated since it signed a ceasefire agreement with Hamas on October 10th. Israeli forces have killed more than 300 Palestinians and injured over 900 since then, according to the Ministry of Health in Gaza. Families say they have no food, no clean water, and almost no medical care. Women, children, and the elderly sleep on mats in packed halls. Their days are shaped by fear and hunger. Nazmia Muhammad Abu Asi and others describe conditions as unbearable. Another resident, Moin Muhammad Abu Advan, says people have nowhere to go. He says Israel's siege on the region has pushed life to a breaking point. He adds that the world sees the images but not the pain inside Gaza, calling for urgent international help. The Palestinian Civil Defense has recovered 15 more bodies from the courtyard of Shifa Hospital in western Gaza City. 4 of the deceased have not yet been identified. This brings the total number of bodies retrieved from the medical complex to 113. Teams say more remains are still missing on the hospital grounds and recovery work is continuing. On Monday, crews removed 98 bodies, including 55 unidentified people. Many have been buried inside the compound during earlier Israeli operations. The Gaza Media Office says a mass grave first was discovered at the site in May of 2024, where dozens of bodies were exhumed. Officials say the grave is linked to a wider campaign by Israeli forces, reporting that nearly 400 people were executed at the hospital. A new study says leading U.S. universities are working with Chinese labs linked to the surveillance of Uyghur Muslims. The report names MIT, Harvard, Stanford, and Princeton. It says they have co-authored nearly 3,000 research papers with 2 Chinese state-backed AI institutes since 2020. The labs are tied to China's defense conglomerate CETC, which helped build the surveillance system used in East Turkestan called Xinjiang by the Chinese government. Both the Trump and Biden administrations have called China's treatment of Uyghurs a genocide. The study says Western partnership helped develop tracking tools, gait recognition, and infrared systems used in repression. It warns that China's laws force all research bodies to support state security, meaning shared work can feed directly into surveillance. Researchers say the problem is the growing acceptance of these partnerships, not secret spying. They call it a failure of Western AI ethics bodies, which rarely speaks about China's human rights abuses. The report urges stronger safeguards, transparency, and limits on collaboration with labs linked to the Chinese state. West Africa's top regional body says the region is in a state of emergency after a wave of coups and attempted coups. Gambian diplomat Omar Touré, who heads the Economic Community of West African States, or ECOWAS, said events in the past few weeks have exposed deep instability. His remarks came just 2 days after a failed coup attempt in Benin. Last month, Guinea-Bissau's military ousted former President Umaru Bello. On Tuesday, Nigeria's Senate approved President Bola Tinubu's request to deploy troops to Benin at that country's request. Nigerian forces had already launched airstrikes against armored vehicles used in the attempted takeover. Touré warned the region must rethink the future of its democracy and strengthen security. Analysts say the Economic Community of West African States is trying to restore credibility after past failures to act. The International Federation of Journalists, or IFJ, says 111 journalists were killed this year. The Middle East was the deadliest region with 69 deaths, including 51 in Gaza. IFJ President Dominique Predelli says governments are failing to protect reporters and allowing direct targeting of critical voices. Africa recorded 9 killings as Sudan remains the most dangerous country in the continent for the press, with 6 journalists killed. Mozambique, Somalia, and Zimbabwe each saw 1 death. Asia Pacific witnessed 15 killings. 4 journalists were killed in India and 3 in Pakistan. The region also has the highest number of imprisoned journalists. A total of 277 reporters are currently imprisoned. China, including Hong Kong, holds 143. Burma has 49 and Vietnam 37. Worldwide, more than 500 journalists remain imprisoned. Europe recorded 10 killings this year, mostly linked to the Russia-Ukraine war. A rare treatment known as Baby Big is being credited with saving infants caught in a recent fast-spreading botulism outbreak linked to contaminated by heart baby formula. The outbreak has sickened at least 39 babies in 18 states. One of them is newborn Alessandro Barbara, who was rushed to a California hospital in October. Her father called the drug hugely remarkable. Baby Big is the only antidote for infant botulism. It is made from blood plasma donated by scientists and volunteers vaccinated against the botulism toxin. Doctors say it works like a shield for babies too young to fight the disease. Before Baby Big, children often spent months in the hospital and many never recovered. The drug was developed after decades of research led by California scientist Dr. Stephen Arnon. More than 3,700 infants worldwide have been treated. It is made in small batches every 5 years and costs approximately $70,000 per dose. That's all from our Toronto studios. Thank you for watching Muslim News. We are a community channel dedicated to bringing you stories you can trust. Please like, share, and subscribe to our content. You can also comment to let us know what you think of our coverage. You can donate now by visiting muslimnetwork.tv/donate. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV. Salam.